This conference will now be recorded.
Bring it to order at 6:37. Now let's go ahead and establish a quorum. Okay. Christine? Yep. Trey is not. Mike?
Here.
Loris?
Here.
And Rachel?
Here.
Okay, so we're good. Do we have any introductions tonight? Not yet.
No, we have some public comments
Will
when you're ready.
our food truck person be here tonight?
She's supposed to be.
Okay. Well, how many people are allowed in this building?
Building 10.
No, for city council, but what's the law say?
17, I think, it's either 15 or 17 on our 75% capacity.
And that's where we're at right now, right? 75%?
Yes,
So we can have 17 in here?
I believe that's correct.
So I want to make an announcement while we're doing this. I just want to apologize to anyone that's trying to hear our meeting and can't, because I think it's very important. We're discussing some things that are very important for the city, and I apologize if you can't hear us, but 17 people are allowed in here. There are 7 on the commission, plus Will, that's 8. So that means that there's 8 people that have to be here, and that leaves us 7 people that could attend the meeting. So if you want to come to the meeting because you can't get us on the internet, you can't hear it, you don't know how to get there, 7 people can be here at any of our meetings, and we welcome you. That's not so with the city council, but it is with the Planning and Zoning Commission. Okay, so that's. Do we have any citizen presentations tonight?
Public comment, you mean?
Yes.
Okay. Let's start. I'll start here at the top with, I believe this is Steve Riesenheim. Steve, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You ready for me then?
Yes.
It's so hard to understand you. You're real staticky.
And
Sorry.
Who is this?
Pardon? My name is Steven Friesenhahn.
Go ahead. Steve.
Okay. I'm on the phone. I'm having a hard time hearing y'all. My name is Steve Friesenhahn. I own the property at 1016, 1020, 13th Street. Y'all can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, at the corner of 13th Street and Green Lawn Parkway. First, I'd like to address the fact that I did not receive notice of this meeting from the city. I found out about it when a person called me and asked if I was going to be at the zoning committee meeting on Monday. I called City Hall this morning and they said I was not on the list to receive notice. I told them my property was up against the property to be discussed. They weren't sure why I was missed, so I let it go at that. Anyway, my concern about the 28 houses to be built on the state-built property to my north is that the water from these lots flow toward my property. A drainage berm and ditch to my east and 2 drainage pipes near the old state-built entrance used to take the water to 13th Street, down the drainage to the Green Lawn Parkway, and then down to Town Creek. These were removed when the 5 houses to my east were on 13th Street were built, and one house closest to my property covers about 1/2 the drainage berm along my east fence line that was there. This caused water to enter one of my buildings, which has never happened before in 27 years. When presented to the city council, they said my problem to the city council, they said that was my problem and that was a civil issue. I called Veritas, I believe that's the ones that inspect the houses when they're finished, and they do not inspect the drainage or anything like that outside the house, just the house itself, which I think the city needs to look at, because that's part of the building process, is the drainage and that type of thing. And if you overlook that, you could cause problems for other people. I don't want this to happen again with these 28 houses. I talked to Jason Wheeler this afternoon about the drainage off this project, and he assured me that it would be addressed and that water would be channeled along the east side of Green Lawn Parkway in the drainage ditch. He mentioned cutting a berm between the development lots and my fence line and the fence line of the 5 new houses to prevent water flow to them and me. As long as this happens, it should prevent any water problems for me and a repeat of my earlier flooding issues. Not sure if this is indicated in the engineering drawings, but Jason's always been straight up with me, so I'm sure he's going to do it. But that's why I wanted to talk this evening, and then I talked to him, so I wanted to, I already said I was coming, so I already came this evening to present these things to you about this development. It's a good development as far as I can see, but I'm very hesitant about the drainage part. That's my problem. So I wanted it to be addressed, and it seems like he addressed it in talking to me this afternoon. Any questions?
No, I don't have it. Does anyone else have any questions?
We're not supposed to be hearing comments on things on the agenda at this point.
I'm sorry?
Things on the agenda are not subject to the public comment period.
It's a public comment, and they can on anything they want to.
Says, for item is not on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
All of our public comments.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for listening.
It's just like city council. Public comments for things not on the agenda.
The city council here saying public comments, they listen to every comment that comes in. So during public comments, they cover everything. That's the way, because it's every meeting, if I'm not correct, if I'm incorrect, Marlon.
Well, including stuff that's going to be on the agenda, we just not respond to them. So when public comments, it's just somebody can come. We're not
We can respond back to them.
Waiting for Mr. Friedland then to discuss when we take up item number or whatever.
Well,
That's what it's supposed to be.
but no. They signed up for public comments, not for to address a particular thing. In public comments, they comment anything they want, but you cannot discuss it with them. You cannot, they can ask you if you got questions, you can't respond.
I've seen that verbiage for many years, that the public comment period is for items not specifically on the agenda. It's what it says in our agenda every time. It used to be on the city council, they may have done away with that, I don't know. But that was typically public comments was for things not on the agenda. When you have things on the agenda, then you can have comments for that, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah. You shouldn't have taken it for later.
Right? We're in public comments, you can comment about everything you want to, we don't know what they're gonna be talking about. Well, so that's what public comment section is for.
So what I'm saying is we should be telling him to stick around until we get to item 2 so we can actually discuss it. I mean, so he can ask us questions and we can ask him questions.
You can ask him to stick around if he wants to ask more questions at the point that y'all are discussing it.
Do we have anybody else that's on the line, online?
Yes.
Karen.
Sharon Savage. Is it okay to go ahead and make a comment, or?
I think so.
Okay.
You can, if this is regarding the stay built property
Yes,
or the food truck that is on the agenda, if you'll wait for just a few minutes and we'll get to that particular item and then we can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Got that? Okay.
Perfect.
What else? Will, anybody else?
Is anybody else on here for public comments regarding the subdivision?
I am, and I wrote it up.
Online, we'll get to you in just a second. Yeah,
Oh, I know, I thought you were just saying.
Yeah.
I was asking for the,
online people.
yeah, no one else is responding.
Yeah, I would like to say something as well when it's time.
Okay, but you're discussing the subdivision, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
What,
Same with all.
just wait until we get, just stay there. We'll let you speak in a second. Okay.
Absolutely.
Are we through with this, Will?
Go ahead.
Okay. Before we get to that, let's go ahead and get the minutes approved. Does everybody have the November 2nd minutes?
I have a question.
Yeah, go right ahead.
About halfway down, so it starts, part of the property is inside the ETJ, therefore PDD agreement will be needed before the development. Is that true?
I'm sorry, where is it? Okay,
Halfway down,
yes,
you see a sentence that starts. On the left-hand side, it starts with therefore.
yes.
Is that true?
The PDD agreement will be needed before the development.
I don't really remember the discussion.
I don't know, is that something you just took notes on, Rachel?
I believe we just like briefly discussed it. But I'm not sure if it was.
I remember that. I think the PDD was talked about.
But is that true, that a PDD agreement will be needed before the development? That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
And I guess Will would be the person I'm asking.
I don't know what you're even talking about. I'm not looking at the minutes.
Okay, it's talking about the mud
Okay.
and the development. And it says part of the property is inside the ETJ. Therefore, a PDD agreement will be needed before the development. Is that true?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, that's all that. That was true.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Okay, Loris made a motion to approve the minutes. Anyone want to second that? Okay. Anybody opposed? Everybody agree? Okay, it's passed. Okay, so let's skip number 1 since we don't have the person here yet, and let's go to item 2, which is discuss and take possible action for requested PDD zoning amendment for a 6.156 acre tract between Mesquite Street and Green Lawn, north of 13th Street. It's commonly known as state-built property. So I think we have people signed up to talk, and I didn't pull the little. Okay, so we briefly heard from Stephen a few minutes ago, and hopefully he'll still be there and we can talk to him in a minute. I appreciate anyone that's involved, any citizen that wants to speak. And Sharon Savage left a note to read.
I haven't left a note.
Oh,
I'm
Sharon?
Yeah, I'm on,
Okay.
and I didn't write a note to anybody, so I don't know what that's about.
The letter, this letter? This letter?
Yes.
From Linda Rogers.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Is it somebody else?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I didn't have a letter. I have one in front of me. I'm just gonna skim through for y'all.
Okay, let me read this and then we're going to listen to the people that's on the phone.
Okay, thank you.
This is from Linda Rogers at 1012 13th Street. And she said, "Dear Mr. Sparrow, I received your letter from the city of Blanco of your intent to develop a subdivision north of my property on 13th Street. I have no objection to this at all, except for water runoff onto my property when it rains a great deal. This water in turn runs into my neighbor's house most west of me. So if you will please correct this situation, I look forward to having a subdivision built behind my property." So she has a problem with drainage also.
She does not. She has a problem with his drainage. She's just supporting Steve Reed's homes.
Okay. Her comment was regarding drainage.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so we have one more person that's here that would like to speak. And so, Gail, would you come up now?
I don't mind if Sharon goes first.
She doesn't, I'm sure she doesn't mind. Do you, Sharon?
No, I'm fine in whatever order y'all go.
Okay.
So I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you guys. And I cut a lot of this out in my speech because it went 6 minutes instead of 3, so I'm going back. If you would just read what I handed out to you, fill in the blank. My name is Gail McClellan. My property shares a fence line on the north side with the property that is being discussed. Thank you for your time and your attention. I'm not sure what all the differences are between R3 and Planned Development District. The most important question is, does this issue and proposal benefit the residents and citizens of Blanco? The number of houses proposed for this property compromises the current neighborhood in every way. The very things that make Blanco a wonderful place to live and visit are being erased. Putting so many houses up so fast and so crowded cheapens our Blanco character. There seems to be no part of this proposal that benefits the citizens who already support this town. The city has been complaining for years that our infrastructure is crumbling. Doesn't it compromise our old systems by increasing the load they have to handle? Are we being set up for higher taxes or higher water bills to fix future problems? How is all the extra traffic going to affect our streets? For each home, we can expect at least 2 cars per family, maybe more. That adds up to almost 100 cars that our streets and citizens have to handle. Each home seems to be, as far as I can figure, about 1/8 of an acre. This means that 28 houses plus streets, those roofs are going to be pretty close together. How wide will the streets be? How safe is it for people who walk the streets now and go to Garden Oaks to walk the streets, the kids who walk to elementary school, the middle school, the high school? How does the increase in traffic improve our community, and how does it improve the safety of our children? A fire will not be able to be contained as readily, and if those houses are so close together, it's going to jump from roof to roof. There's a safety issue there. Much of the property currently serves as a natural habitat for wildlife. We love that. There are more animal species on that property than you can shake a stick at. If the trees are not given enough room to be healthy, they will affect the beautiful heritage oaks on my property, because unhealthy trees are breeding places for the oak wilt virus. Whenever people are squeezed together in high density populations, crime seems to increase. My concern is not that some building will take place. That doesn't bother me. My concern is that there are so many houses going into 6 acres. Mobile homes aren't permitted in our town. Why aren't there some restrictions about size of lots or something? Put the citizens first, please. Many, many people have not known about these issues. I didn't even know about the houses that were just approved, and I try to keep up with things. So please include you, the people, in your decision making. They're not come to you, they're scared of you. Most of the people wouldn't dare come and speak. But you represent the people. I know y'all weren't elected, and I love you because you care enough to do this. I really do, because it's a thankless job. But please go to them and find out what they're thinking. I may be in the minority, but from what I've heard, I don't think that I am. At the very minimum, I would propose doubling the size of each lot, cutting the number of houses permitted in half. In the wildlife habitat, where most of the majestic oaks are, 1/2 acre would be better to give them water and food and stuff. This would be a much better fit for the Garden Oak subdivision that's there. A lot of them have 2 lots, but crowding all these people in with all that traffic and everything, it's going to create some problems. And I didn't hear a bell go off, but I'm sure it did.
We're not going to ring a bell on you.
Oh, you're not? Oh, I
We
didn't
don't
know
have
the
to
whole
go
thing.
on.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to this. I know, I appreciate you.
We appreciate you coming. Thank you, Gail. Okay, now, Will, who do we have on the phone now? Sharon?
Yes.
All right, Sharon, you're up.
Okay, thank you. With Gail's appeal to you there, I'll shorten some of what I had of that because I could just repeat every word she said and believe in it strongly. I'm a resident of the Garden Oak subdivision for the last 15 years and a Blanco resident for the last 25 years. So I feel very strongly about the community and really support what Gail has said. With 28 new homes and 28 to 50 new cars and trucks, and perhaps up to 28 new dogs and cats, and 28 new fence lines, perhaps even on 3 sides of the property, with accumulated runoff to accommodate the 28 new homes, and the overflow of the water in the trench line on Greenlawn Parkway, and the flooding that will likely occur across Greenlawn Parkway without strict engineering guidance, and with the diversion of water that Gail has mentioned that nurtures the soil and the trees and the plants and the wildlife, with the chemicals that come from building, with the lack of understanding of the wildlife and the enjoyment of the wildlife that we have in this neighborhood and in our community, with the lack of seeing the stars at night, which we are able to see, with 28 new porch lights and security lights, with new electrical lines and telephone poles, as we've already seen on the 5 houses that have gone up. How many more will there be? The platting that we've seen from Mr. Sparrow does not tell us how many more poles, how many more transformers, how much more danger is there from those type of electrical lines and transmissions that must be put in to handle 28 homes, with fiber optic lines that need to be run, with the disposal of 28 new accumulations of trash on a weekly basis. How will that all be handled? Right now, because we had one new house come in on Greenlawn Parkway by the same builder who built the 5 on Jason's lots, or what Jason sold off maybe, the trash can for the apartment complex there got moved to the corner of 13th and Greenlawn. So as we enter the subdivision now, we get to walk into a big old trash can that supports the people there. So what happens on the 28 houses and the trash? What do we do with regard to the increased vehicle activity of those who come to visit the 28 homes? We saw over the Christmas holidays, even though there weren't not a lot of congregating in the neighborhood, maybe 10 cars at one of the new 5 houses on the roadway. Now we're looking at 28 more homes. We can build a parking lot and we can run paradise all in the same swoop if we're not very careful. We've been asked in the neighborhood to absorb quite a bit on an accelerated basis. And to what end? There's the decision apparently that's been made on the 23 zero lot line houses across the street. There's the 5 houses that's already gone in, a total of 56 houses that this neighborhood and community is being asked to absorb. Yes, there's going to be growth coming to our area, but if we have the jewel in the crown in our city, then we must protect it. There is a biologist, professor, writer that I've been studying through the university over in San Marcos who talks about these issues just brilliantly. And I really can't capsulize it all, but she explains that when the settlers came to this country at a time when the indigenous were here, the settlers came with the idea that property is real estate, capital, and resource. To the indigenous, it was identity, connection, home, and everything. If the true purpose of the planning for this community is to protect the understanding of and the character of a small town, then we must act responsibly and with respect to the land, somewhat in tune with how the indigenous felt about the world. So I would ask, number one, on my first point, for the commission to slow this thing down, to relook at the sizing of the lots, and to consider the entire community and our ethics before we go forward. Secondly, in paragraph number 2 of Mr. Sparrow's letter that was sent to people dated December 14th, 2020, I take specific a point to the quote where he says there are no critical environmental features or wetlands identified on the property according to national and state databases. I would submit that this statement actually means nothing. Isn't it the true test whether there are indeed any critical environmental features, not whether they are listed in a database? I mean, anybody can say they're not in a database, but are they out there? That's what our duty is to find out. In point of contention with Mr. Sparrow's statement to the council and to this commission, Blanco County has 85 endangered or threatened species in a database maintained online by the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. We should ask Mr. Sparrow or Mr. Wheeler or whoever is handling this matter to ensure us and ensure the commission that these 85 species do not depend on the habitat within the acreage at issue. And I'm assuming a lot of that will deal with the lower part of his platting and not the upper part. So maybe the commission can slow down some of the development of the lower part until we get a handle on what we're really doing here. I would also ask that the commission consider if it's possible to resort to a weigh-in or a discussion with and ask for the input of our local experts that doesn't cost any money, people that generally will talk and share their expertise. For example, Cheryl Rogers on plants and insects, Retta Martin and Judy Dorsett with their knowledge from Keep Blanco Beautiful, not to mention their knowledge of the character of a small town as it relates to the natural world. Mr. Stanley, our naturalist who writes for the papers on soil and trees and plants and bugs. Texas Parks and Wildlife Rangers on the reason that every time you walk through that community, you seem to run across a box turtle walking by and coming out of the bar ditch. Miss Greathouse, a master gardener on plants, trees, and soil, and the locals who are involved with and have an understanding of our historical trees. It's not about cutting them down, because I'm assuming I will not let that occur. It's about the slow death from the development of the disease that will naturally come from this type of development. And my last issue I'd like to speak to is flooding. We are all so sensitive in this community about water runoff flooding and the damage it can do to persons and property, particularly due to the recent history of the Memorial Day flooding. I would ask that this commission, particularly in light of the intensity of the development that is proposed for the 6-acre tract, to disclose and assure to the residents and to our community that drainage and flooding has been properly and expertly completed and evaluated by professionals. I found it extremely offensive that a flooding issue has already been reported on the 5 houses, causing the runoff down towards Stevens' property, the fourplex down there, and that the city council response is go file your lawsuit, find somebody to deal. Statute of limitations are now already running. Insurance companies are going to have to be put on notice if these residents are going to have flooding issues. I would hope that the banner headline to put people on notice to go talk to their lawyers is going to be out there, because if they already know they've got a flooding issue or a water runoff issue, and if it hasn't been engineered and we already have tested the waters with the 5 houses, I feel like there's nothing more we can do but require that we see where the detention ponds are going to be placed. On the platting that has been submitted, I did not see any. Where is the determination of the need for or the no need for detention ponds at? Can we see that? Where is the engineering report concerning the changes to this high intensity build and what it will do to our neighborhood? Water's going to run, and it's not going to be an easy water flow off of 28 rooftops that go downhill. The topography is pretty interesting there. And then I would ask that in a database, Mr. Farrell says there's no databases on environmental sensitivity. Well, I consider water maybe in the category of environmental sensitivity, even though that may not be a definition for his databases. But there is an old database that has a City of Blanco drainage assessment that was apparently provided to them by LCRA that is still online, that does show the maintenance of the Green Lawn bar ditch by the city to help with the runoff situation. I know LCRA probably does not cover our area for doing a new assessment of the drainage ditch, but without engineering or without somebody in the county that is very knowledgeable about flooding, or without an organization like LCRA, which helped Blanco out back in 1991 and has shown the map where there was even a runoff issue there with no housing up there, I would submit that we really need to table this and get it back on the table to figure out what the engineers say about what's fixing to happen with 28 rooftops pushing water down the hill. Thank y'all for your time.
Sharon. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else?
Scott,
Scott who?
Scott Briscoe. There he is.
Yes, hello, this is Scott.
Hi,
Can you
Scott.
hear me?
Yes,
Hi
we
there.
can hear you.
Okay, yeah, I'll keep this short. I'll echo what Gail and Sharon said, the ladies before me. I live at the corner of 13th and Oak Ridge, and I think that 28 homes in that small area is just way too much. For all the reasons Sharon was speaking about, for the animals there. I mean, I walk this neighborhood and have been walking this neighborhood for 13 years with dogs and my kids, and there's a great herd of deer back there that are going to be displaced, obviously, and I guess that's not the builder's issue, but it does feel like it should be somebody's issue, and I'm just going to sit here and echo the same things that they said. And opposed to 28 homes on. That's a great piece of property. I agree. I see why they want to build there. But the amount of homes there and the amount of runoff and traffic that little property will bring is just something that a rural community which we consider this a rural community, I don't think we're ready for until there are engineers involved. So I do oppose it. I hope that there will be a better resolution to the situation. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Scott, for your input. Thank you very much. Anyone else, Will?
Is there anyone else that wants to speak online? Does not appear so.
Okay. I guess we need to have Mr. Sparrow up where we can listen to his presentation and give the commissioners a chance to ask you some questions.
Let me add one thing real quick on the complaints about the water engineering. So they will be responsible for the engineering of the drainage and improvements all along Green Line Street, that include culverts all the way down. And our engineers will review that as well as to make sure it is adequate. There's already been a pre-study that our engineers did about a year ago on that as well.
Speak up so everyone can hear you.
So there's a pre-study done by the engineers prior to this subdivision coming to what it is now, that about the drainage, both sewer and water drainage. And they're working off of a preliminary study. Now they'll have to do a full study on the water drainage and make improvements all along Green Lawn, to the ditch side, to the culvert side, to the entire drainage of the area. And they'll benefit by going all the way down Green Line, not just as it does pertains to their subdivision. And then they'll submit that study to the city, and our engineer will review that as well and make sure that it's correct, or if there's any additional items that need to be done. So just to address the water drainage from an engineering standpoint, that's been preliminary review.
You said that's going to go down Green Lawn Street.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to take it then into the town creek? Yes. Over there by 7th Street?
So that's correct.
Okay, we'll have.
The study will be done, completed in the city to make sure that the town creek can handle that. That'll be part of our engineers for the city, managing that part on out.
Thank you, Will.
Sorry.
That's all right. Thank you.
No, that's already been addressed.
We'll take all the input we can get. That's what we're here for. Now, can everyone hear Mr. Sparrow, or do you have to put him a mic up there?
Probably put a mic and check for him. Rachel didn't say anything, so we'll probably take hers.
We do need a microphone closer, please.
Say something to them, Mr. Sparrow, so we can see if they can hear you.
Good evening, this is Mark Sparrow, developer representative for property owner Mr. Weaver.
Bring that thing up so that
Can everybody hear that?
I think so. Can you hear him? Yeah. Anyone online, could you hear Mr. Sparrow?
It's very difficult.
You need to be shorter, closer to
Okay, Mr. Sparrow, we're so glad you're here. Thank you for coming, and thank you for all the information that you've given us. We got it a little late, but I'm glad we have it. And I didn't get the letter that they got, so I had to read along, but that's fine. I have a lot of questions, and I think the commissioners do too. But I'd like to listen to you first, and perhaps you can address some of the questions that came about, and then tell us what you've done in requesting what we had in the past.
Okay. Good evening, planning and zoning, and public that is in attendance, virtually or here. My name is Mark Sparrow. I'm developer representative for Mr. Wheeler on the 6-acre site on this commonly known as the stable tract. With respect to some of the comments, I know density was one of the issues or concerns. This property is a little less than 5 units to the acre. With the current R3 zoning, I believe R3 is 5 units to the acre. So we're under the density units per acre with this PDD submittal. In addition, I believe we meet the minimum lot size, lot area requirements, which I believe is 6,500 square feet for each lot. The other thing we did with the design of the development is we tried to keep it self-contained. By that, I mean, all the lots front on internal streets, none front on existing streets. And that was done for aesthetic purposes to not, kind of keep the development self-contained. So I heard a comment about, garbage and garbage cans and that type of stuff. So those will be internal to the project. With respect to the trees, based on our preliminary review and tree survey, we believe we will be in compliance with the city's tree canopy ordinance, the tree ordinance. In addition, we plan on incorporating the city's new light ordinance as well to, keep the night sky as best we can.
Did I read in here that you're going to have underground utilities, so we won't have the overhead wires?
That's correct. So basically, the development will be served with underground utilities, obviously wastewater and water, but also electric, phone, and cable.
So the poles are all on the periphery and everything inside underground.
That is correct. And then again, with drainage, it's our intent to, make improvements along Route 1 Parkway as, and work with city staff and city engineer on that. We've done a preliminary drainage study. We have not done a final. So that'll be the next step if we go to the final plat and construction. Because we will be submitting, more detailed construction drawings and that with the final plat.
I guess my question, I don't know, everybody else has one, but pertaining to what you're speaking of on the drainage. I know, I saw the flood. I know what happens when we have those kinds of 100-year flood. I don't care how often you have them. When they destroy homes, it's bad. And so my question to you would be, I know you're going to do the engineering. From your drawings and from what you've submitted here, I can see that you're going to put in new culverts and you're going to expand bar ditches. I didn't look at how far down. What if after all of that happens, we have a huge flooding issue? Is that then the city's problem? Or are you folks going to back up whatever your engineering drawings say to make sure that that doesn't happen?
Well, our design would be to whatever the city's design standards are. So to the extent that it's to a 25 to 50 or 100-year storm event, then that's what we have to design our drainage to. The intent of this development is not to adversely impact anybody downstream. And basically, release water at such a rate that, it stays pretty much at the rate that it's at now. That's the objective of this project.
In that regard, and I wasn't here at the earlier meeting when in the earlier plan, but that had a detention pond that you've gone away with that.
Yes, we did. We went back after comments from members of P&Z with respect to the tree canopy. Pond was going to be located basically where lot 19 is.
Yeah.
Right.
And there are some significant buried trees on that lot. So we met with city staff to again address the comments from P&Z about, design and trees. And when we did preliminary survey work along Green Lawn Parkway, took elevation shots, again, got with city staff. And based on our preliminary study, we believe that we can, take the water runoff within the bar ditch on the east side of Green Lawn Parkway, upsizing some culverts and get it eventually down to 7th Street.
The retention pond, like I said, it was lost twofold. One was multiple points of egress and the preserving of the trees. So they never have trees. And we can, design, and of course, our engineers can come back and we're looking at their preliminary study, and still say, no, you gotta have detention. And if their recommendation is the detention pond, and it will be, it will be, because that's the lowest point, that's where all the trees are at, then we, as a city, will have to make a decision of what is best. The detention pond or the trees.
So the concept now is whatever runoff that is in this development would all be handled by the ditch along Green Road? Is that the idea?
That is the idea.
Well, no, because half the subdivision.
Well, half the subdivision.
Half to go to Mesquite Street.
So it's humped or something?
Yes.
Same thing with the sewer services and water services, because you have fall to Mesquite Street, half the subdivision services will go to Mesquite Street, which is a 12-inch main, as opposed to coming down hill.
And I'm sympathetic with the concerns of people about drainage. Because I cannot conceive of a situation where you take an open 6-acre plat, you put buildings and driveways on it, and all the runoff can be handled by a couple of ditches.
No.
That is no secret. But that would be up to the engineering study. Problem is, what's the oversight on the engineering study? We don't see it.
You can require to see it.
The city council see it?
Not generally, the city, drainage criteria and UDC and the IEC dictate what the requirements are. But if you want to see that, it can be provided. It's a matter of public record once it's done.
No, but I mean, there's no approval process. The only approval process is the engineer saying, well, I'm an engineer, and that's not always found.
That's pretty much for all structural building type stuff.
Drainage is a special issue. It is.
My question was, I didn't see it in the report. Do we have a impervious cover percentage?
Less than 50.
Yes, it's a little less than 50%.
I know that we have one set. I didn't see it in your report. So it's less than 50%. Okay.
Somewhere in there, it is.
Yeah, it's in the report, I read it.
I don't think I was able to get all of this like download, so.
Yeah, we have one tape to the weather.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Okay.
My concern is the channel water down toward 7th Street. So you're gonna be using the bar that would be on the east side of 13th Street, right? Yeah. So, and then it would go down at the house that's on the corner of 7th and.
If we had Trey here, he could put it up on the screen, but he's not here.
I mean, and then if you move further, there are houses right there alongside the football field that sit right on it. They sit right on it. And then you go on further down toward 1623, there's a house that sits right on it. We already have, we have part of town running through Tallow Meadows. Isn't that what runs out the driveway there to that? I mean, anytime it rains, before Calico Meadows. Then that great big swell that's cut there.
But a lot of that drainage from the playing field goes across that subdivision.
It goes across that subdivision, then goes through their entry, then on into Town Creek, right? Right. Blue seven. No, it's before their entry, it's for their property, so their property's not affected by it.
Oh.
Rather than their entry is. I go out there during heavy rain, it just rushes across the street. Yeah.
I don't know what it's like now, because I'm not working with it, but in the past, the lady's house started back up on that pole.
Okay.
Y'all had to put in, who knows, put in. So, yeah, there was a lot of water coming through. But that's getting away from this particular subject here. I've got a question right here, because you've got houses along Green Lawn that face the side of the proposed lot in your subdivision. Is there any way to put some type of screening in there to kind of reduce houses that are facing the sides?
They won't face, they'll be the backyard, the green lot.
Will be side,
Side, backyard.
Side, yeah.
Yeah.
which can have a zero lot.
More than likely, just based on the topo on that side, there will not be a zero, like it won't, but the house won't, but right exactly on the property line, on the west property line.
You're saying your PUD allows.
Yes, and the reason why that request was made was basically because of the amount of trees, heritage trees on the property. I was seeking some flexibility to be able to move the footprint of the home from one side to the other to miss some of the trees. But again, going back to the concern about those side lot lines, based on the topo, because you're looking at probably 2 to 4 feet of fall in those lots. More than likely, those homes will slide on the east side of the property line, not on the west side.
Okay.
And typically with that, the builders usually do put up side fencing.
Right.
Along the sides of that.
So you would be looking at, say, a solid string fence?
Yeah, probably a solid wood fence.
And I apologize, I don't think I got the whole attachment. All I'm seeing on mine is the maps. I have one other question. What about sidewalks?
There'll be sidewalks as required in the DEC.
Okay, would you share with her so she can see that?
Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't understand the verbiage about sidewalk, but if you build up against the curb, they might wander. What does that mean?
Well, they might meander within the right way of the street, again, to avoid a significant tree. I was again looking for.
Okay, so the difference between the 40 and the 22 is that side.
Right.
And curbs is there, so the sidewalk could be right against the curb or it could be along.
Exactly.
What about the additional buildings? There was something about minor.
Well, I have a question on the buildings, okay? When he's talking about that. Your original plan back when we looked at this back in July, you had 27 homes and the detention pond. And in your new plan, you had 28 homes and a park area.
Right.
So my question is, in that grouping that is the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, it looks to me like that is where you added that extra lot. And if you made, and I'm not an engineer nor am I a builder, but it looks to me like if you made that number 4 to be what it was previously, it could be like a 65 width, and then the 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 8, up to 9 could be a 50.8 width, and you could drop that number 10, and you would be back to 27 homes again, and you would have a little space in there because you've already said that the distance between the homes are going to be approximately 10 feet. Is that right? At minimum. And so that stretch that's right there from 4 to 10 is your closest stretch And they're side by side. So you're going to have those homes they're going to be right there. Now, I know that you have two, they're 17 and 18, and they're 47 feet wide. That's the only two, because you have that number 22 happens to be 45 feet wide, but it's right next to the park. So I'm not at all concerned about that. They're going to have some open space. So 17 and 18 are going to be your smallest lots at 47 width. But that 4 through 10, it looks to me like that's where you've added a lot. Am I mistaken, Mr. Sparrow?
No, what we did is to avoid what I call reverse frontage, to minimize that. And what that means is reverse frontage is where you have the front of one lot is backing up to another lot. And what happens is typically the builder, when they construct their fence, that fence along that rear property line of that lot extends all the way basically to the property line, and it makes a jog along the side yard. Okay, and what happens is in this particular case, if we left it like that, so lot 6, if we turn lot 4 and 5 to face the first through street, then lot 6 would be staring at a fence as their front view from their porch. So what I was trying to do was, when I met with our engineer, we decided to revise that corner so that basically lot 4, which is 49 feet, will probably have a side yard buffer where the fence won't be able to encroach, beyond a certain distance from the home. And that'll leave lot 3 a view, out the through street. So when they're standing on the porch, instead of looking at a fence, they got, maybe a 15-foot window, that they can look out on that first through street. Does that make sense?
Can you show me? I'm sorry, I'm visual. I'm a visual person. I'm a visual person.
Me too.
Well, you took the hardest route.
And I'm not very smart, but I got one of those.
Couldn't you jump over?
10 years ago, I would have jumped.
So typically, what we'll do on this lot here is.
Lot 4.
Yeah, lot 4, this will be probably a 10 to 15-foot side yard easement here. So basically, when the home is constructed, they'll come off a certain distance away from their yard, side yard, and they'll fence that in. So that leaves this guy, if we push this house up, now instead of looking at a fence that goes all the way to his corner, it's now going to be either 10 or 15 feet off his corner.
Well, I mean, if this type of thing, but you made this lot wider, what you had before, I didn't even know which one. You know what, it doesn't matter which one of these lots we're talking about. We're talking about this group from 4 to 9 are right on top of each other, and they're 45-foot lots. If you lost that number 10, why could you not spread those out however you decide is best for lot number 3, but not make them a 45-foot width all the way through? I'm talking about from here to here. If he lost that one and spread these out, we wouldn't have 45.
No.
Because he's saying that the width from one side of the house to the next, the minimum is going to be 10. Well, when you have that many houses in a row, you have a 10-foot, and that's all you have, 5 there. So I guess the fence would be down the middle of that 5 feet.
5 feet.
And that would add enough space in there, but they wouldn't be looking at a fence when they looked out their stipend. I think the question that I'm asking is like, then you're back to your 27 houses, which in effect, that's like added a house. Does anybody understand what I'm saying? Can you tell me?
You're adding it by taking one away?
Okay. There were, in this drawing, there's 28 houses.
Mm-hmm.
If we take this one out, we'll have 27, which is what we had before. It's like they put another house.
Well, and I'm not sure, I'd have to go back and look at that plan, if we included that right of way that's to be conveyed to the owner or not, in that layout that had the 27. That-
No, I'm there. There wasn't.
There wasn't.
And I'll go around the outside now.
Number 27.
Well, there's 27, but the right of way is not there in the
Yeah,
original.
we didn't show it on this one.
No, you didn't, but even though you're showing that up there, you took out the detention pond. And I like that you put in the park, so you added that. I mean, I like what you've done here. I just don't like this row after row after row of houses that are the most narrow lots that you have.
But they do meet your requirements,
They do, if you look over here and, yes,
which is what the property is currently zoned.
I know, if you look over here at this side, they do have a 65.25. I'm just telling you, I don't like that 45 foot.
Okay.
Does anybody over there, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but that's not the fundamental question.
Here we have 28, we have 27 before. It's like this one came in,
Yeah.
these could be split out.
Add an extra, that's
Take
exactly.
that one out and these could be split out.
But the only way we attack that is in some other manner. You can't design their lots.
Well,
can tell him what I
we can,
think.
but we can ask questions. This what this presents.
I can't tell him how to design it, but I can tell him what I don't like about it.
Why do we have to go to such a high area? I mean, that's, that's what basically, I'm assuming your point is that you got those narrow lots in here. And why?
Well, I think that let me just say something. Let me just say something about this, and I may be all wrong because I'm only one person on this committee.
But you're the most.
Thank you so much. I hate that because that puts more responsibility on my shoulders. Okay, so when I looked at his lot areas, they were all 65 plus. And all we have in the UDC is that they're 65.
6,500.
65.
Yeah, perfect comment with. We've done a lot of things on the Route 1.
So the thing is, I understand all of that. I'm looking at the inside of this. I'm looking at if you were in here living in this. And I'm sure that you and Jason both have looked at that. But I'm saying from a woman's point of view, thank you, sir, that I would be uncomfortable in one of those homes from 4 to 10 because they're going to be right up against each other, however you put those homes. And I haven't heard you yet say if you were going to stagger those home frontages.
I am seeking a variance to the R3 to allow me, instead of the front setback, minimum front setback of 20, to reduce it to 10.
And
Give me that ability to move again,
Which is.
side to side, front to front, to minimize.
so that would allow you not to have everybody right straight down the road.
Correct.
And I know that we had this discussion before, so that was one of the things on our list. Okay. But that's the problem that I have now. The other issue that I have here, and I don't mean to jump in and not let anybody else talk, so just tell me to be quiet when you're tired of listening to me. That's what my husband does. That's what my husband does. The drainage is a problem. I don't care what anyone says, this drainage is going to be an issue, and it needs to be looked at with a lot of eyes and people with knowledge. Now, you want to talk about flooding. We all know what flooding was because we were here, most of us. It flooded my property. I mean, it went over big time and went right on down and flooded the seniors. So it was like an ocean going through there. And we had to put additional drainage across our property to keep from flooding the seniors. And so and we've never had that before, and we've owned that property for 25 years. That's the first time that we'd ever had that issue. But it only takes once. It didn't get our house even close to it. So my question again is going to be, if you have 15 engineers and they all tell you that what you're doing is perfect and you've fled this place, who's responsible and who's going to fix it? That's my question. Because the homeowners won't, they won't be able to. We're talking about people going in, they can't fix it because it's going to be off their property. And like me, I could go in and do something with our property, but it's going to be off their property and it's going to be downstream. So who is responsible if that happens? That's my question before we get any further with drainage.
It really isn't anybody responsible other than the city.
Who's going to take it on? I want to hear Mr. Sparrow and Will, and even if, even our Mayor Pro Tem, I would like to hear you say to me what you intend to do, if anything, because when it happened to our place, and I talked to a mayor at that time, he said, wasn't his problem. I said, thank you very much. Don't come back to my house. I don't, but
I'm not sure that's a fair.
I think it's a fair question.
Let me ask a question. Isn't this a higher elevation here in the middle of this development? So what you're doing is you're throwing all out. So this particular
with the existing topo.
what's that?
You're with the existing topo, there is a high point of the property. It splits, some water will run off to Mesquite Street, some water will run off to Greenlawn Park.
So for your concern is, I don't think that this area will flood because it's at the higher area.
That area,
What I'm concerned about is going down to the street.
and there are no borrow ditches on Mesquite Street. In that, they're just, the property comes right up to it, that's the, which is always a big concern of mine. That's cool.
That's the origin of my question about responsibility after this point. That engineering study will come back and say, yes, this town was fair, this town was fair, and there's no oversight on that.
Well, can we require oversight on it,
I think we can,
our own?
which would be our job. Because we're supposed to be somebody who digs into it and advises city council. Engineers do engineering studies, but sometimes some other judgments needed to look at it. And I think that's a valid question.
And they're going to do the study, you're going to do a drainage study.
Yes.
Very,
Yes.
well,
In conjunction with the,
okay, my question is, instead of going all the way down on Greenlawn, if you could cut in on 13th and go down to Lazy Creek Lane, Lazy Creek. Go down to Lazy Creek.
That puts it right back into town, into the town creek
It's
then.
on the same place.
Oh, yeah, it all winds up in the same place.
But you're not, okay, but you're not taking, well,
And what about those houses, there are new houses back there that have been built right,
you know, I'm talking about underground down to,
oh, take it in.
yeah, taking underground down to Lazy Creek. And I hate to say that because I live pretty close to Lazy Creek. But
Well,
instead of,
I don't know. I think,
I mean, that creek is there because of the pond.
right,
And we've never, I mean, we've had a lot of water come down through it. But I think it's a safer area than safer one.
well, and that's where I have to go back to the engineer, because the engineer is gonna take into consideration, okay, what if there's a development that goes on the other side of Country Lane, and they want to start city government, take into consideration future development.
Okay, so we already have that development that's going in on 12th Street as well. Where's all that going?
Well, one, they have a detention pond, and two, it's gonna be in that same,
It's going to, it's
Right.
same thing.
My question is, can't we look at an alternative such as increase decrease the impervious cover percent, having things like driveways that are permeable as opposed to tar. I mean, there are measures out there that other subdivisions elsewhere have used. I'm wondering if it's time for us to start looking at those as options, especially if other properties in that area will subsequently be developed, assuming we have the water supply to service them. I'm just curious if we need to look, and we'll maybe landscaping options. I know you probably don't want to hear that, but I'm trying to think what else we could do to allow a subdivision to go forward without having those negative impact to the properties around it.
So if you're potentially suggesting something like decomposed drain and driveways?
No, so I'm thinking like the cement blocks that you stand sideways that as opposed to having tar. I've seen a lot of parking lots at the parks down in San Antonio. And so when it rains, it goes straight into the ground. There's no runoff, that type of thing.
And what is it? Is it not like it's gravel?
No, it's I don't know the exact structure part, but it's basically cement blocks turned on their sides. So when it rains, the water goes down the hole.
So what you're talking about?
Well, there's also decomposed drain. It's also something that's used on walkways, driveways.
But that needs replacement frequently, like every couple of years, that would have to be replaced.
Well, for the property, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So I'm trying to think of something, and if they don't do it, then we're back to the same problem.
I think there's several kinds of permeable paving type solutions that can be done. to have a good use of it. But just looking at it, what would you say the impervious cover is going to be on the lot?
Less than 50%.
I know, but that's 3,000 square feet. You got 1,000 square foot homes and a 12-foot wide driveway. How are you going to get anywhere near 50%?
It'll probably be closer to, I would say, upper 30s, low 40s.
Yeah, I mean, unless they're going to pave the backyard or something.
Right.
Most of them not covered. You're doing 1,000 square foot houses and a driveway. Hard to get it up to 3,000 square feet.
But as long as you have, I would think, as long as you have a hard surface on a slope, you're gonna have a runoff onto it.
It'd be better to have something.
Yeah.
But you're going to leave a lot of trees there too.
Yes.
And I believe I didn't see it when I read it this time, when I read through your script, and I did spend some time on this, by the way, and I think you've done a lot of things that we asked you to do. I just want to tell you that up front. But you're going to have at least one tree. If they don't have one now, you would put one tree on every lot. Is that correct?
That was not what's in there, but that's something that,
Every lot should have a tree on it because they're going to be so close together. I know there's a lot of trees there. And so most of these properties are going to have some large trees, but there's some of these properties, a few of them that have nothing. And I think that I would like to see you put at least one tree on every lot.
I thought Chris raised that issue last time, didn't you?
That was on the little side of the, and it's a 3-inch caliber.
Let's chat about that.
Would that condition be on every lot or just on the lots that don't have?
The lots that don't have a tree.
The lots that don't have a tree, but you've also got to take into consideration where a canopy of another tree may impose onto a lot. So take lot
1, 2, and 3.
Those are
24 have no trees.
right. Those are easy to say, but say 25, the canopy of the trees that are on 26 could prevent tree growth from on 25.
Well, if you put a tree on 24, 25 would have both, but I still say you could put a small tree on that lot. Every lot should have a tree.
But it's not an issue except on 1, 2, 24, and 23.
There you go.
The only ones that don't have a tree.
However, you might run into a problem if you're gonna have the standard locations at the front of the house, because now you have to take the tree location.
I don't care where he puts the
Tree
tree.
would go to the backyard.
I don't care where he puts the tree. Every lot.
How many trees are estimated to be taken, Alex? Is that on there?
No, it's not yet. One, we got done kind of a layout of the streets here. So I haven't identified specifically which trees may need to be removed just to construct the streets.
So now they're like 66. 76 trees that are identified. A good number of roads in that park, these.
Which is great. I love the park.
I mean, it's doable to keep a lot of trees.
I would, just looking at the tree survey and where the street kind of generally follows, I would say probably in jeopardy is 212, 247, 248, that's on the first three.
Oh, the ones that are in the street, yeah.
Yeah, and then probably for sure 282, but I think that's a half buried or percent.
Are we done with trees? Can we talk about them now?
I'm done with trees, yes. I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Sparrow.
Don't go away.
No, you're not near done yet. I hope you slept well last night.
I've got sort of fundamental question. Is this, and Will, whose question is directed to, is this a complete application for PDD?
It is a preliminary application for PDD, subject to your input.
It does not have a. It does not have a master plan. It said shall be submitted along with the request. Which would indicate, and the stuff in here does most of the things. But it's supposed to identify proposed land use density, building locations, building footprints, thorough allocations of the state boundaries, including proposed for the trail system, yada, 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 yada. And it shall be submitted with the request. So is it a complete submission?
I said, no, it's not. It's complete.
Then we cannot approve. Somewhere in here it says that if it's not a complete submission, we should not consider it.
I think that's in the UDC code too, isn't it?
I'm looking right now.
It's on page 176 or something like that.
Thank you. Look it up, see what it says real quick. Thank you for your conditions.
With conditions.
Yeah.
Because that was the point of being preliminary. We think it's pretty close. It needs to be wrapped up, but depending on what direction you send. We've been here several times. And we've got a lot of direction to come up with the information actually from your direction to put into the PDD, but we need to now fine tune that to where you can say, we would recommend this if you do this, or we're not gonna do this. If you're not gonna do something, that changes the whole landscape of what they're trying to do. For example, just saying, if you say, lose lot 10 and leave all those bigger lots, that's not, that could move forward, but it could have other implications that we'd have to redo the entire PDD and its design.
So are you opposed to that, Mr. Sparrow?
Well, I just wanted to make sure I kind of understand the concern, because from my perspective, we have a PDD master concept plan, which was dated 11/19. We have the preliminary utilities plan with that.
We have the PDD. Do we have a copy of that?
So what?
PDD plan?
The PDD, yes, essentially the PDD.
Yeah, that's this thing.
Oh, that's this? Okay. Sorry.
The thing that didn't seem to have somebody attached.
Similar things,
This
but
draft.
I sent them. Go ahead, Mr. Sparrow, I'm sorry.
And then it also included the tree survey.
Yes, sir.
It also included the kind of summary letter, the informational letter that went out to the people within 200 feet. And the last thing I wrote down from your ordinance was a TIA, but because of the lot count, the TIA wasn't required. So I believe I met the minimum requirements for submittal and approval.
Okay,
Then the question just becomes as far as what type of additional conditions.
right. Okay, so if I go through this thing very, very quickly, when I look at 2.1, you got the acreage, right? You get, even with 29 homes, you have 5 per acre.
I see 6, I see 5.7, I see 5.861,
Officially, it's 5.8168.
Right, and that's in there for somewhere, it's 5.861. You had 29 homes, and that was 5 per acre. So I understand that you meet that minimum or maximum, and your minimum lot size, you said from 65 to 58. I think the smallest you had was 6525, was that right?
That's correct.
So you met that without any trouble. You had your minimum lot.
Why would this PDD have in it that the minimum lot area could be as low as 5,800 if everything is above 65? They're asking for a variance to allow lot sizes as small as 5,800. Their plan does not show anything below 65. I don't know why that's in there.
If it wasn't on this plan, if there was, the lowest you had here was 6525, that's what's going to be in the PDD?
The reason why is in particular lot 10, which is currently 45 feet wide. There's a heritage tree on the south west corner.
One more reason to lose that lot.
As you said, everything is economics, goes down to economics, so.
So we could say, we could say, RK, that we want the minimum lot size no less than 6,500. We could drop that. I mean, that could be one of our, that could be.
What's happening is a lot of the is density. They have met the units per acre.
Yes, sir.
With this plan and the size of lot.
Yes.
But the way that happens is by having a variance on the lot widths and by having a variance on the road widths. If those go away, the density drops down probably a lot more power. But that's how you get to this, is by having those variances.
But the road width variance is due to trees for preservation. Specifically as it pertains to that one area in front of the park.
Yeah, no. There's a tree in the middle of the road. There's nothing else close. Now, I'm saying, if the objection is the intent for this development, the way it's gotten there is by variances on lot width and variances on road side. The road side one, I don't agree with. Going to have a narrow road with maybe a couple parking spaces in a driveway by the house, so people are going to be parking on the street. This is going to happen.
But there are sidewalks, you said, correct? I could, yeah, okay.
Doesn't matter.
I'm just thinking in terms of people being in the road and cars are going out. Yeah.
So that's the issue, fundamental issue. Do we approve those or recommend approval of those variances, which results in this?
To address that, if I increase the right of way by 50 feet, would you not agree that I'm going to be removing some more trees?
It's not obvious.
It is to me.
Well, sure.
I think if I would add additional 10 feet of right of way to these streets, tree 271, which is on the kind of the north property, so it'd be lot 27. I would probably lose the tree on 270. It's would be lot. Well, that might be park. But it's close. No, it is in the park, but it's going to be increased right away. So 270 is the park, the kind of north boundary line of the park. So I'll lose that one. And 270 is a. Looks like it's a potentially a 41 inch.
That could be 4 or 5. That's a playbook. You know, when I went back and looked at what we're supposed to look at for PDDs, there were 7 criteria that reason you would do one. To provide for a superior design of lots of buildings. Okay. Provide for increased recreation and or open space opportunities. No, less that would be lesser. Amenities or features that would be a special benefit. Protect, preserve natural amenities, environmental assets. Protect and preserve existing historical buildings. Only one I could see that kind of met would be to provide an appropriate balance between the intensity of development and ability to provide services. So I didn't see it meeting any of the things that call for PDD that I was just considered. I looked at the land use criteria, met the density, drainage is a big issue. Trees are an issue. The technicality of it, I don't agree that it's a complete application because I never master plan. There's an informational statement. General statement setting forth how the PDD will relate to the city's comprehensive plan. Aerial photograph with boundaries of CD master plan clearly delineated. Let's have any of those. Official submission statements to the data is a complete application for approval PDD that contains all elements of information regarding first submitted to the administrator. PD master plan which do not require include all required information will be considered incomplete, shall not be accepted, and shall not be scheduled on P&Z agenda. So that's my opinion. That's not a complete application.
Which one are you reading? What are you reading from, RK? What are you reading from?
I'm reading criteria for PDD, page 132 through 136, 130.
132, okay.
A whole bunch of stuff. But that's, we can agree to disagree on that.
I was under the impression this was still a conceptual plan that we were looking at. I was assuming this was not the final application.
We have not done a final plat with construction.
Okay, thank you.
So with that in mind, I have a question about minor modifications. Examples of minor modifications include the location of use classifications. What does that mean? Sorry, what? The location of use classification. Slight adjustments to the internal street and drive alignments.
The number of buildings. These are things that can be administratively decided.
Yeah, but I mean, all sorts of changes can take place. The number of buildings, that's a number. In density or impervious ground.
I want to finish some questions, and he's going to probably ask you some more, but when you have on page 7, you had minimum lot width from 60 to 40. You have none that's under 45. I would like to have that changed to 45. And you had a minimum front yard setback from 20 to 10, but then you had a minimum side yard from 5 to 0, 10-foot minimum. I want that to be 10 foot. I don't think 5 foot is going to get it anywhere.
You want a 10-foot side yard setback?
Minimum side yard setback. You have 5 to 0. What does that mean?
0 to 10.
Yeah, but there'll be, no matter what, there'll be 10 foot between them. So one house might be right on or close to the side property line, but the other house will be 10 feet away at least. That's what that means.
Okay, so if that house is right there on the property line,
The next house.
would be 10 feet. But what about the one on the left? What about the one on the other side of it?
It could be more than 10.
Okay, but it wouldn't also be on a property line, that house that's on the property line here, it wouldn't be on the property line there, right? I like the front yard setback if you're going to stagger the homes, that you could have some at 10 and some at 20. Because it doesn't give you a straight line that looks like terrible. Yeah, that you have to live that way. I mean, that's the thing.
No, I agree.
People that are choosing to live that.
Exactly.
They're going to buy that.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
for what we're going to look at in this subdivision that's in our city, that looks pretty bad. I know there's a lot of them. I've seen a lot of them, but we're not San Antonio and we're not Austin, and God, I hope we never become them.
I thought unique was one of the characteristics of a PDA.
Yes, there's supposed to be something unique about it.
Well, that'll be pretty unique. The other thing on your design standards where you have your lot area, it's got 5,800 square feet or greater. I would like for you to make sure that that's 6,500 because you haven't gone below that. There's no reason to make that 5,800 square feet.
There's the A, the variance A. That we talking about? Yes, I'm still agreeing. There's no reason for that. Flat doesn't show it.
Right. The next one on 2.42, the lot width. You got no lot width within the project shall be less than 40 feet. I want that to be at least 45 feet. I want that 40 out of there.
Let's talk about that. The requirement is 60. They're asking for a 33% reduction in the lot width size. That's rather large. Maybe it should be 60. That would be a 160.
You only have, okay, you only have, if they take that extra lot out.
I'm not going to design their lots.
I know, I'm just saying, if they make those lots along 4 through 9 to be 50 instead of 45, the only two lots that are in question is 17 and 18, and they're 47 feet. Now you have that one next to the park that's 45, but it's going to have that whole park area. I'm not worried about that one.
But see, this is not a final plat.
Well, that's why we're talking to him regarding that. I mean, I thought that's what this conversation was all about. But, you know, I think as I go through this, we have requested many changes, and he has done many changes that we have asked him for. I don't know that we're all, I mean, this is a negotiation. This is not, you've got to do it our way or no way. We can't have it that way, and we're never going to be able to have it that way.
So what has improved over this previous plan?
Well, two things that we really pushed on was you can't push all that traffic out on Mesquite Street, and we want a place on, and they gave us two. They didn't give us one, they gave us two. And even though they did away with the detention pond, they're going to do the culverts and they're going to do the bar ditches and they're going to go down through all that. So, I mean, you have to think about what they have given up or given to us that we've asked. And that's why I'm trying to get through this list that we ask them about. But we may not like a concept like this. We may not want this density, but the true thing about this is that they can make this a pretty nice residential area for which we need, the Blanco County, that the city of Blanco needs, and they're working with us quite a bit. We could have somebody come in here that didn't work with us at all. And so I just want to lay this out here and say, I appreciate what they have done, what I can see they've done so far. We may have some qualms and we need to get to those. I would just want to bring up what he's done. I mean, we're really beating him up, and that's okay. You're a big guy and we're going to beat you up. But I also want to say that he has done a lot of the things that we asked him to do. Now, let me just finish going through his little list here, and then we can beat him up some more.
What list do you?
I'm just going down his draft. I'm going down to page 7.
I have to read the list of things.
No, because I went through that and marked them off on here previously, but we'll go back to those. So the setback on the building setback as follows, and that's in on page 170 of the UDC code. I looked that up, and so the minimum front yard setback, you have 10 feet. The side yard, you should be from 0 to 10, but you're telling me that 0 to 10, what does that mean? That no two houses would be closer than 10 feet.
That's correct.
Now, I will tell you that as a city girl moving to the country, because my husband's a country boy, this is not a good thing. But I understand that according to what you have here, you can't put a house on a half acre and your business keep running. I understand that. I just want to make it the best I can make it for the citizens that are here, and that's what I'm about. I don't like that side yard. I don't want it to be, I mean, you could put, the side yard for any one house must be 10 feet. If it's 10 feet on one side or 10 feet on the other, see, I'm a visual person, it's okay. But I don't think it should be 0. I'm sure you're saying if it's a 0 lot line on one side, then you're going to have 10 on the other, but that's not what that says to me. So some way or another, we got to get that fixed.
See, with your 25, 27-foot lots, you got a 20-foot wide house, it's sort of low. And you got a 12-foot driveway and 2 10-foot setbacks, you're already bigger than lot size. At 20 plus 20 is 40, plus 12 is 52. So if you have 10-foot setback on either side and a 20-foot wide house that goes back and a driveway, it doesn't fit, it's 45-foot wide.
Okay, so is the driveway going to be on the side or in the front, Mr. Sparrow? I don't see any driveways on these houses.
No, it'll be just a brick driveway.
It wouldn't be because of the width of the house. It would be within the width.
That's what I was thinking. Okay, so the garage is going to be a part of this building? I mean, or is it going, no requirements for a garage, okay. So, and no carports.
No, I haven't.
So how are you gonna do that if you got a 10-foot setback? And you're gonna fit 2-car driveway in front of the house and a porch or something? How you gonna do that? I don't think these things are.
Well, that's why we're talking about this, but so the driveway would be to fit 2 cars on. So if you have only 10 feet in the front on your setback, does that mean you're going to make the driveway wider where you can park 2 cars next to each other?
Well, the driveway would start at the curb. Okay.
Well, you can't park on the sidewalk.
No, but your driveway cut starts at the pavement and then extends into the property line.
But you can't count that until you get to the property line.
Can't count until you get past the sidewalk.
You can't count the part that's in.
And again, I'm not an engineer. And if my husband says I want 10 feet, I say, you get me a ruler, because doesn't make any, I mean, I'm visual, I'm sorry. But if you have a car and you have a 10-foot setback, and if the 10 feet starts at the curb rather than on the inside of the sidewalk, because you certainly don't want somebody parking on the sidewalk.
Actually, the 10 feet starts at the property line and the edge of the right of way. That's where the 10 feet setback starts.
So the sidewalk's on the outside of that.
From the street to your end of right of way, beginning of property line, there's a section of driveway there as well. If it's installed.
But they can't park there.
It would block the sidewalk.
As long as they're not blocking the sidewalk.
Yeah, but I mean, they can't park from the road to the sidewalk because they block the sidewalk. So they got to come inside.
That's why we're proposing to put the sidewalk at the back of the curb with the exception of allowing meander to avoid trees.
So the main reason for what's the main reason for the change in the front setback? What's the primary?
To move the houses so that they don't line up all on.
No, you can move them anyway. You got lots that are 130, 40 feet deep, you can move, it's got all kinds of trucks still. The only place where it doesn't occur is on these that are only, what are they, 100 feet deep. Let's say you had a 40-foot deep house, you've got all kinds of trucks still.
Like I said, I'm visual. My question though is going to be, is a vehicle going to fit in the driveway? It's going to be, here's the road, here's the sidewalk, here's where their driveway will start that they can park on to the house. Is it going to be deep enough for them to park on that driveway? And if it's only a 10-foot driveway, does that mean that you're going to have the driveway wide enough to park 2 cars there?
But it's not over wide.
You got a 12-foot driveway, then up around 2 cars.
Pardon me?
It'll be 2-car wide driveway.
2 cars, so 2 cars can park side by side.
The 12-foot driveway will allow for 2 cars.
Okay, I'm just wanting to make sure I understand. Okay.
12-foot driveway, and those cars will fit within the 6-foot square.
And what if you have, and you know, you're going to say cars, and you're emphasizing that. I wouldn't have done that if I were you, because it just brings up the question of, now you've got a truck. And how many people here in the country, you guys drive trucks? My husband wants me to drive a truck, and I'm like, no, thank you. But my point is, you're gonna have a truck.
You can't put 2 trucks in that driveway.
Yes, you can.
If you can, I'm happy with that. If you can't, I'm not happy with that, because they would park on the street, Mr. Sparrows, you understand?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll come back to that in a minute. Everybody keep that in mind. The building height is okay. And you said that the cover, the impervious cover was less than 50%. Did you agree with that, RK?
I don't see how they get that much.
Okay, so it's always going to be less. So that's an okay. That's an okay. All right. So then the building area, required building area, said that it says in here the total area of a residence must be at least 1,000 feet exclusive of carports, garage, and porches. I like that part. The minimum, I asked earlier and found out, or was told, that the minimum square footage on a house was 800 feet in the city of Blanco, which I guess keeps out tiny houses. I don't know.
I'm not even sure that it's legal to require.
Well, we can try on a PDD. On a PDD, we can charge it. Okay, so just let me get through this, and then y'all can beat it up all you want. So if you have a 1,000 square foot house, is that going to be like a 2-bedroom? Are you going to have anything less than a 2-bedroom house in this subdivision?
When the building I spoken with this far, I don't believe so.
The basic house is 20 foot wide, 50 feet deep. We just, with my sister, toured a Del Webb community in North Carolina. And they had 3 different versions of houses, 20 foot wide, 30 foot wide, 40 and 50 or something, but we're all deep. And that worked, tiny lots. There was a very small, probably 5-foot side yard setbacks and things, but you can do that. They were, the smallest one was 3.2.
Okay. Okay, and so I just wanted to, because again, I think that when the UDC was updated, the comprehensive master plan, if I recall correctly, it was found out in that study that most of the homes that were in the city of Blanco were 1,000 square feet or less. Does that ring anybody's bell? Does that? Yeah. I didn't bring that with me, and not in the UDC code, but in the comprehensive master plan update. That's what I was talking about.
Is that footprint wise, or is that whole building living space?
That was living space. The living space. Maybe, and I'm sure the new homes are much larger maybe, but I'm just saying that evidently the homes in the city of Blanco, I'm almost sure it was 1,000 square feet.
Homes are in the probably 9, 8 to 12, 20 range, a lot of the older homes.
Right.
Which are, I can't say that most of the homes in, but a lot of the older homes.
I started to bring that.
Considerable amount.
I started to bring that comprehensive master plan. It's right at the front of it, and when she does her summaries where it is. Anyway, so 1,000 square feet, at least we're over the minimum. And then the trees we've talked about, as long as we have at least one on everybody's lot, I'm pretty happy with that. However else they want to do the trees. The outdoor lighting, you said you're going to comply with the outdoor lighting ordinances, so I'm good with that. The park dedication, I'm really happy with that because it says that the owner agrees to construct $5,000 in park improvements in that park. I think that's a great move. And it's right where people can get to it and they can all see it. Utilities are going to be underground. I like that. The streets, I asked my husband about this because I know nothing. Shall be reduced from 50 to 40 feet. And he said 2 cars could pass easily on that 40 foot.
No,
because
the pavement is 22. The right of way is 40. Pavement's 22.
And if folks are parked along one side of
And
it.
you got that.
I have a question.
Okay, but wait a minute. What we're talking about is we cannot tell a person to do not park on the street. You have to park in your driveway. We cannot tell them to do
You can't
that.
if it's an HOA.
But this doesn't have an HOA.
That was the difference between here.
Yes, yes, but this one doesn't, which is I'll bring up in a minute. This one doesn't have an HOA, but if 2 cars can pass on this street, and my husband said that they could pass on this street without a problem, as long, he said, as long as nobody parks on the street. So I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I would much rather have the area in the lots than I would on the streets. But I know when we go to Dallas and we go to a friend's house and we go down their street and the cars are allowed to park on the street, 1 car can get through. And if somebody else is coming, they got to pull over and wait. But you know what? We can't tell people where to park their cars unless it's an HOA.
Let me point out the discrepancy. The driveways have to be 12 feet wide. The right of way to road can be 22. That's not. But the road surface area should be 22 feet. Let's do that.
No, but don't they generally in road construction consider 11 foot per car? For some reason I know.
Thought about that, yeah.
I like that so much.
But
If garages were 10 feet wide, the old garages were 10 feet wide, they could hold a car. That would make sense.
it's not the need to make the driveways 12 feet wide, but not where it's sitting still. But the road, better than 50 feet out the door.
Mirrors.
Your typical, like left turn lane that's in the middle of the road is not 11 feet wide, pavement, from stripe to stripe.
That's good. Comparisons too.
Okay, so that maybe we can, maybe some of the commissioners want to talk about these streets. The driveway, carport, garage, you got a minimum in there of 12 foot wide, all weather surface within the boundary of each lot for parking. Parking in the streets will be discouraged. Now you can discourage it all you want, but again, you're not going to be able to, unless you make it an HOA.
Well, I could put it in the deed restrictions.
Oh, wonderful. Deed restriction,
But who's
great.
gonna enforce it?
It'd just be the residents and,
And it's
Any
not-
resident, I mean, that's not our problem. If the residents are happy with it and they don't report it and it's in the deed restriction and the police can go take care of it, we can't make them report it. Let me just give him a break here.
at least more.
Is there an extent on the driveway, carport, garage, have parking for at least 2 vehicles?
Yes.
That's not what it says. What it says is the minimum of something 12 foot wide. Doesn't say how long it is, nothing. It said if you intend it to have at least parking space for 2 vehicles, say it.
Okay, so could you just rephrase that, Mr. Sparrow? Okay. And make sure that, but we're going to talk about a deed restriction here in a minute, I hope. The sidewalks are along the streets, the owner to repave a portion of Mesquite Street. That's great because you're not going to put sidewalks on the side of the street, only within the division, the residence, right?
The internal place.
Okay. And then you're going to have sidewalks within the project may meander between the back of the curb and the street right of way, because I don't want you to take up trees either. I mean, so you walk around the trees. I mean, as long as we have a walking sidewalk, I'm pretty happy with that. That's just me.
It's good to allow the meandering sidewalk.
Yeah. I just think that, that's not a big problem. And the utilities, I see that it says on the, now we're going to get into wastewater again. And I'm just trying to get through this before it gets to be too awful late. The wastewater, the city will allow for the owner to connect to the city-owned wastewater line, generally behind the home at 1235 Greenway Parkway, and to connect to the city-owned wastewater line, generally across the property from the east side of Mesquite Street. Then I have a question out here. The city shall obtain any necessary public utility easements along 13th Street and Green Lawn. Has the city done that? Were you on your phone or did you hear me loud and clear?
We have the easements necessary on 13th and Skeet. We have the easement along Green Lawn. Go the direction Mark had talked about. We have each city easement, utility easement, they'll work with them, yes.
Okay, it says in the event that the city is unable to obtain the easements or that the wastewater lines are private, then the property may be served by an on-site sewage system. Help me out. I'm visual. I don't know what that means.
What kind of on-site sewage system is allowable on 6,500 square foot lots? I'm not aware of any.
Not this little, like a private septic system.
Septic systems, I thought they required a minimum of 2 acres.
No, 7,500 square foot in the county.
Okay, this
Not with what, did you say?
Minimum 7,500 square foot is allowable in the county for a septic system.
We hope that didn't happen, but is that what that means? That you would have to put in a septic system if you can't get that easement? And the city would go with that?
We have those easements in place.
I would like that whole sentence taken out.
If we have the easements in place, I want the last part taken out. I agree with RK. If we don't need that there, we don't need any more gibberish than we have to read.
That's fine. I'm not arguing.
I'm sorry. I'm going to calm down because my husband would say, calm down, sir. So I don't mean to get pushy. I just want to make sure we get everything we can. So we're going to start with in the event that all that comes out from there down to the end. And then I'm okay with that because the city has it. I'll put city has. So I'm okay with that part. Then the water, the city shall allow the owner to connect to the city-owned water line, and you got that taken care of, right? So that one's okay.
That's the easy part.
Okay, perfect. The electric, the owner shall tie into existing three-phase overhead electric lines surrounding the property. The extension of electric service of each of the lots shall be underground, and I love that. Owner shall grant or obtain any necessary public utility easements from the electric co-op to allow for extension of the electric lines to serve the project. So that means who does that? If the owner, you do that. Okay. And then the communication lines, the local area service providers shall be selected by the owner, which is great because he can choose who he wants to fight with because he'll have to fight with them. Then the final plat construction drawings, all wastewater and water lines and services, stormwater detention and drainage facilities, streets and lot grading shall be designed by a civil engineer licensed in Texas. And hopefully it's not going to be his first project. The civil engineer shall be engaged by the owner. The owner's civil engineer will prepare and submit the construction drawings for the project to the city's engineer for review and approval at the time of the plat application. So you haven't done that yet, right, Mr. Sparrow? A sign application will be submitted prior to issuance of any sign development or permit.
What's the sign?
Any signage shown on exhibits is not deemed with authorized or approved through the approval of this ordinance.
That didn't make any sense.
What
What-
signs
what
would we might
sign?
have in there?
There'll be any like neighborhood entry signage that would, you know, we would use. So like.
Directional sign?
Yeah, or not just a monument sign. That type of thing. Typically is at the beginning of each subdivision.
But that would have to be approved through the UDC code through,
The sign.
yeah, okay, okay.
What is the name of this?
Right now, it's stated unit 1, lot 6.
Okay, so then I'm good with that. And then the architectural standards, the following residential design elements are to be incorporated into this project. All building materials must be approved in advance by the Architectural Control Committee. Who is that?
It'll be probably myself as the developer, another owner representative, and then probably the builder. So in any case, the developer will have control because we'll have 2 out of the 3 seats on the ACC.
Okay, we're not going to make these look like townhouses that I might see in San Antonio or Austin, right?
No, they'll be in keeping with this, you know,
They
the
would.
homes in this round.
I would really like to see something in there. Well, maybe you haven't, maybe I haven't read far enough. All projections from a residence or other structure, including but not limited to chimney flutes, vents, gutters, downspouts, utility box, blah, 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 blah. Otherwise approved by the ACC, match the color of the surface from which they project. No highly reflective finishes other than glass, which may not be mirrored, shall be used on exterior surfaces other than surfaces, including without limitation, the exterior surfaces of any improvements. Now, you're not going to have an HOA. And so I guess my question would be that these, all building materials must be approved in advance by the Architectural Control Committee. I assume that that means they can't build a house with metal sides.
Yes, that would be something that I would.
Okay, and you and Jason and somebody else has to approve this.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
Or Representative Jason, it may not be him personally. It might be
well, you can let him know I would hold him accountable since he's the one that's going to initiate
Well,
it.
in our other request, we've had these drawings of the structure.
And I was going to ask him, that's right, Mike. I was going to ask, can we get some drawings of what you might approve so that we would know what you're looking at? Because we're giving a lot. If we all agree to this, and I don't know that we will yet, I'm just spouting off here, but if we agree to this, we would like to know what this development is going to look like. And we're trying really hard. I'm trying really hard to look at your side of it, and I know they are too. But we still have to look at the city side of it, the citizens that have to live in it and around it. And so if these homes are built such as a home that you would see in the city of Blanco, maybe with front porches, or where they're not straight up and down, you know, they're not even townhouses, because townhouses have some kind of personality front. I mean, if you understand what I'm saying, if we had some idea, I would like to have some idea involved in the plat when you're done, that you show us what those homes would look like, at least 3 or 4 different views, if that's what you're going to use.
And I'm thinking to go a step further, we could start off with something very nice, but if there's no deed restrictions as to the style, then anyone could come in and renovate 5 years down the road, if there's no ACC around to review the renovations, right?
Would you be okay if I provided the plan elevations and deed restrictions at the time?
I would love, yes,
Yes.
yes, sir.
Okay.
That would be a big help.
Yeah.
But you have to understand, if we don't have those things, we are putting the citizens of Blanco in your hands, not in their hands. Not even for us to be able to talk to them and find out if this is acceptable. And we're here to do what the citizens want, not what we want. And so I see a lot of good in this. I'm going to be quiet in a minute and let everybody else talk, because I see a lot of good in this, but we do have some problems that we need to iron out.
Just, I know Mark doesn't want to say this, but because it's not finalized, but from the design standpoint, they're working towards very similar housing plan as what was in Los Altos. The small frame house that has personality that can.
Yeah, you know, it's 1,000, if it's a 1,000-foot house and it has a front porch, it makes a big difference to that house, you know?
Especially if this is a unit 1, where are the other units gonna be constructed? You know, I mean, if we're just talking about unit 1 here, then I'm assuming it's gonna be a unit 2, a unit 3. And I'm just.
No, this is it for this property. What you see is.
What we see is what we get.
Okay,
If
so
there's no more room.
This is unit 1, okay.
It's just a.
So it's
This is a standalone PDD.
Yes, it is.
fine,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Subdivision, PDD, everything is standalone. That's one piece of property.
Okay, so now I've gone through my list and I've had the floor here and I'm going to be quiet. I want everybody to comment.
Well, I want
Yes, just 1 minute. He wants to say something. Go ahead.
I just want to make a comment. As most of you are aware, I also am representing property owners on the 385 acres. So I just want to let you know that I'm not a one and done developer where I come in, get one deal done and move on. And,
Are you talking about you're involved in the mud district?
Yes, I am.
Oh, I hate for you to say that because I don't want that there. But anyway, I understand that this is a separate issue. Okay. All right, now be quiet.
I want to bring up an example of what you just talked about with the housing and what it looks like. We had the 5 lots over on 13th Street, right? 5 years. 4 of them really, I think, look really nice and they can fit. It's come in with the 5th one. It's a shotgun house off to the side, completely different from the other ones, and I think it looks terrible. And so I'm thinking, you know, what you're raising up with him, that's an example of how do you control what somebody's going to be doing in it.
Well, he's going to do his deed restrictions.
What, you're gonna be building these houses.
No.
No, you're not. People are gonna just buy the lot and then build it on.
Well, hopefully we get the lots under contract with a single building. And then we have a lot more leverage in negotiations on those.
And we're going to put some deed restrictions in if you don't have an HOA, so that you wouldn't have. Now, when these first go in, they are going to be prime. They're going to look really good, but what are they going to look like in 5 to 10 years? And that's the problem if you don't have some deed restrictions on these homes that then people have to live in a subservient area, and that's not what we're after, because it could be a great place, I think.
But you can put in all the deed restrictions you want, if there's nobody to enforce them, then they don't do any good. That's my concern, is we can put in all of them.
Honestly, that could happen. It's been my experience over the 30 years. And I've been involved with HOAs, property owners associations. There's always somebody out there that's willing to file a complaint either with the management company and or the ACC and or the board about somebody who's not doing something.
Well, anybody can file a complaint. They don't have to live there, do they?
So they write an anonymous slip.
They don't.
But see, I'm just looking at it from the San Antonio point of view, which is obviously different. But folks did complain, but if there was no one to bother to enforce it, then it just sat there as complaint after complaint after complaint, and the problem.
Okay, now let me ask you.
The city has some mechanisms where somebody, like, there's a 311 or something like that, that the grass is tall, somebody's not maintaining their yard.
Oh, they can't paint their house purple?
What's that?
They can't paint their house purple?
Whatever.
I think we have to have a standard. Pardon me?
Not on colors.
Well, sure you can on a deed restriction. Huh?
Don't think they have it. I don't think they would enforce it. if they did.
That's what I mean. It can be on the books, but if there's no one to actually do the follow through.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Now I've said my piece. I'm going to let everybody else have theirs.
Why wouldn't there be an HOA?
It's just the cost of maintaining the HOA, setting it up. Wow, yeah, it is, especially with 20 lots or potentially 27.
I hope. I'm hoping.
I'll attest to the HOA, the one in town. Since they called me for most of their contentious issues that was, they were going to exchange for a lot.
Depends
And I
on,
have to tell them I can't do that, it's an HOA issue, and, you know, sorry, it's perfect, but
but if there's a deed restriction and there's a violation and I call you, Will, and say,
there's
blah,
some.
blah, blah,
but
you have to
there's
take,
not a lot, I can't do anything. But I can do when they come file for a permit for a remodel, I can follow the deed restrictions at that point. That's what's allowable within the
and
remodel.
what if they don't get a permit? Do you get to fine them?
That's a minimum $2,000 fine.
Perfect. Perfect.
I look forward to those. I look for those every day.
Perfect. Love it.
Yeah, I look for roofers. I love catching roofers. Anybody that, especially if I catch them the second time, that's one of my favorite things to do. I'm looking for that $2,000 fine.
Good. Okay. So did that kind of answer your question or not? Did it get lost in the answer?
No,
Rachel?
we just have an example.
Well, I work for a property management organization, and they had you know, I mean, I think they could, you know, take your house away from you or something. I can't remember. It's ridiculous. How far they could go if you didn't follow their.
Yeah. There's a lot of legality in that the city just can't do, but there's a few things we can do, and at least we can apply. We may apply false threat, which I do a lot.
And the fence would be from the front side of the property, the house, or maybe 10 foot back or whatever from the house. And then it's going to go down both sides and across the back.
Correct.
Thank you.
The fence will not exceed the front light.
Right, right.
Would the park be open?
It's a public.
In fact, it gets dedicated to the city, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for the time.
You're welcome.
I'm pleased to see that.
I don't know if I missed this, but were the environmental scans completed about the wildlife? That was the concern.
There was just a phase one regarding the services. At the time, the problem. Basically, phase one environmental, address wildlife habitat. So the rest, it's, you know,
Let's see that.
critical, wildlife, you know, bugs, cave bugs, that comes to birds.
There are a lot of deer there and at the other proposed development.
There's a lot of deer in our yard too. My husband wished he'd come over and hunt them.
I'll take you up on that.
They eat everything in sight. Kill your trees. I went through the list that we had when we did this in July of 2020, and the things that we have asked for in this list that we had questions on, he has pretty much taken care of, addressed in this new one. So what do y'all think? Where are we? Where are we on this? Do we want to give him a list of what we want him to have in the deed restriction, or?
I've got a couple of questions.
Okay, good.
In the draft ordinance here, will this go to city council at their next meeting, depending on what we do? Will it be complete then?
It will be complete work with the city council, but we depend on your information to complete it.
So right now it says that there isn't a tax master plan prepared in November of 2020. It wasn't attached. Where is it?
It wasn't, I have a copy.
I have a blank page that says master plan.
And we didn't get it, is what he's saying. Mr. Squirrel.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Would we ever see this again, this development at any stage? There was talk about final plat approval or something like that. Are we involved in that?
You can be.
I don't think once we could do this, we ever see it again.
We'll have to come back through a final plan. Then I have to submit a final plan.
Yeah, that goes to administrative unless, so typically, the administrative side handles the final plat, but you can require that the final plat along with the house design, what is it?
Plan elevation.
Yeah, be, submitted to P&Z.
Prior to it being voted on at the city council.
No, you can put it.
Approval, I mean.
You can put it as a separate condition, so that it's something that y'all need to see and have input on before it's actually constructed.
Approved, okay.
That has nothing, that can be separate from the approval of the PED. No condition put upon, let's say that.
What'd you say? Okay.
I would like to see that along with the completed master plan come back to P&Z at some time. Since we don't see it. And as part of the final platform, we'd like to see the master plan that's completed. If they have it, you know, but we will see. Otherwise I object to considering it.
Okay, so, and I tend to agree with you totally. I mean,
Do you know the completed master plan?
Yeah,
It's too late.
You want time to look, make sure.
well, it was submitted, you know.
It's not too late.
Not to us, and it was part of, according to the zoning, we're supposed to see that before we make a
Before we
decision.
make an approval. So we only have three choices. We approve it, we approve condition, or disapprove it. Not send us more information. That's not one of the choices.
okay, so we
I would
can,
like to
we
see-
can put some
I would like to
conditions
see
on
part
here.
of the final plat review, the completed master plan that goes with this PDD.
Ms. Moore, did you get the completed master plan?
No,
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out this, because I sent everything forward. I was trying to figure out if there's something that you guys, everybody else did, you guys.
when you did this, and then I got these drawings, and that's all I got.
The plan, because that's the PDD master. plan.
This is the master plan?
Yes,
These two drawings.
it should be full.
There's four there.
Scale,
There's four there. I just gave them to you.
Well, then it doesn't meet the requirements.
right. It's right here. Did
A
you?
lot of stuff you're supposed to have.
Yeah.
This master plan that looks like this,
It shall. Building location, building footprints, public space boundaries. Doesn't have that.
Building dimensions, setbacks, coverage, height, parking, loading signs.
I don't see how
Yeah, that's why I thought this
anybody
was
can
so,
consider this.
yeah.
so what is it that you're asking him for? I'm sorry.
A master plan.
We want to
Betty.
see everything about
This is, here,
it, not just lot size.
yeah.
We want to see where the houses are proposed to go, how the driveway is proposed to be set up.
Gated subdivisions,
And I'm not making this stuff up. That's
No.
just what it says.
this is what, yeah, we took around, what did you say?
And that's to be with the completed master plan, is to be with this submittal.
And I would like to request that we get some structures, proposed, what these proposed homes would possibly look.
Well, according to the ordinance, that's in here. The ordinance says that those things are attached. With elevation, two front elevation, typical front elevation.
Oh, there should be, okay.
Exhibit C1 and 2, that again are blank pages.
Okay, and that's okay to request. The lot, the building zone of where it's going to be built on the lot and things like that was not requested in the previous meeting.
But it's part of the
But we
PDD,
have-
and we did ask them to follow the PDD requirements, and you
I'm
just
just
say.
telling you wasn't provided in the last.
For tractor supply?
No, it's lost off.
Was that a PDD? Oh,
Yes.
Okay, we had building location, that's all.
Yeah.
We saw the house.
We saw the driveway, we saw the elevation.
Yep.
You saw the elevation, I agree, I'm not arguing with you, okay, calm down. I'm just saying.
Oh, my God.
Everything, the elevations and the looks and all that is all acceptable. And that's what we did provide, but as far as the actual build location on the lot was not provided.
We saw conceptual building locations.
We did,
And we saw.
There were 3 different ones.
We saw them.
but the option depended on what he wants to go for control, but
They were conceptual, but we saw concept.
we saw what the options were gonna be.
That's my fundamental problem here. Do we consider this or not? Given that it is clearly an incomplete master plan and therefore incomplete application of PDD. Now we can fun on that and say, if we're having this other opportunity to do something, okay. But I don't think city council will consider this, not based on what we have. Legally.
And I think we have to be so careful because it is so dense. And we've got that other one going in off 11th and 12th Street that's also impacting the runoff from the area. We just have to be so
But it's
careful.
also not as dense as the other one.
No, but that's a different, now she's talking about water and runoff.
I'm just
And
saying,
I realize
it's the
that, I'm
density,
saying
but it's the density that we have to be so careful with everything we do.
But the per acre density is not. as
Well, we
dense.
wouldn't approve that again, so that's a good thing.
But we're going with unique, we're not looking for cookie cutter.
Right.
We have that.
Okay, so let's make a list here, just because I'm confused. I don't know about Mr. Sparrow or anybody else, but I am. So what do you, just don't tell me PD plan. What do you want? What do we want him to give us?
Master plan as described in the Union City.
Most of which I think we've discussed, yeah.
Okay, so,
I mean, it says it's here. So you must have it. But it's just these 2 drawings, that's insufficient.
so what are we reading here? I don't understand. I'm trying to look at this. A list of the proposed development standards. Is that what, are we talking about this one up here? Help me.
Sure. These are what are required to be in them, all this stuff here.
Okay, so they're asking, okay, so can we just get in this?
Sure, well, it's right. Yeah, absolutely. Pages 130 to 140 in the UC.
Okay, write that down, Mark. I'm not writing.
And it's section 4.12, I think.
So what this is saying is, in effect, I'm going to just read this very quickly so that we'll know what we're looking at. A master plan shall be submitted along with the PD zoning request and shall be processed simultaneously with the PD zoning request. The master plan shall be reviewed by the city's development review team, whoever that is.
What
If-
they do,
135.
go back to
I don't have back one. I only got 135.
130.
It actually starts on 130.
Tells you what it's supposed to add.
There's the other pages.
I just need to understand it. I don't understand yet, so I hope you do.
Well, I think I guess I wouldn't have thought that it would have made it this far. It was an incomplete.
Well, that's, the city is supposed to make that judgment. They have, at the very beginning of the meeting, I disagree. But I'm not going to keep us from moving on it for that, but I think we ought to make that clear to city council that before they consider this, that the things it says are in here are in here.
Okay, so 130, 132, the standards, he's laid those out. The nature of the district, he's laid that out. The land use, is that what we're going through? Is that why you're asking me that?
Land use is like the zoning.
It's in there, the base district is in there, the variances.
Yeah, we're over here on one page. We have open space.
Help me. Help me here. 34. Okay, so it says mandatory, the PD master plan is mandatory step in the creation. It establishes general guidelines for the PD district by identifying the proposed land uses and intensities. We have that, right? Building locations, is that what you're talking about on the setbacks?
That's one of them, building location, building footprints. I mean, I didn't make these things up, that's just what it said.
Okay, building footprint, through fair location, so we have that. Because we see that on here. Open space boundaries, we have that, right? I mean, including any proposal, public trans trail system, master plan as incorporated in the PD ordinance and together with the text of the ordinance establishes the development standards for the PD district. Is that what you're?
That's things that are supposed to be in there, some of which, well, nothing's in there. We don't have a master plan. It's not attached to this document, so I can't say what's in there.
Okay, so he's saying we need a master plan and you're telling me this is the master plan. So where are we different? Where's the?
I don't know.
That doesn't show the locations of the building.
It doesn't show the.
It doesn't, it doesn't show the traffic impact.
Traffic impacts, it doesn't meet your traffic impact analysis requirement.
Okay,
Just like-
okay, so that's one of the things that's listed.
What,
Okay, so we want the building imprint on here.
I just want them to put in there what it says is required. Or that something.
Or see.
Right now, we, of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 exhibits, 2 of them are there. 2 out of 5. This is going to be the ordinance that goes to city council. Presumably they'll all 5 be there, but they're not there now.
And we did
And
it.
that was my reaction when I looked at this first time, was, where's the rest? We're supposed to approve something based on this, and these things aren't there. Now, the wording is there in various places, and the assurances are there, but you don't meet the technical requirements. And you can send it on with whatever kind of recommendation.
Okay, so.
The city council considers it, then they all go out.
Okay, so what is exhibit B?
That's the master plan.
That's what I'm
That's the
asking.
master
I'm
plan.
just,
it's master plan, it's utility plan, it's the drainage plan, and it's the tree survey.
So this,
There's
it's attachment six, the whole thing.
and that's what is in this, is what you're saying?
master plan,
Yeah,
I don't see it.
utility plan,
Yeah, the second one.
That's a
It's the
wastewater,
utility plan, that's water, wastewater.
not drainage.
not drainage.
Then you have a drainage. You show the locations of culverts.
so this is the utility one?
Second page is utility.
Second is utility, third is drainage.
Third is tree.
Oh, is, well, I've got them all, I don't have them like you have them, because I put them in a packet for them, and I probably messed that all up, so.
Okay, all right, there's
Sidewalk plan is
And again, like Will mentioned, I was trying to view the prior myself to speak as far as what was provided. If I omitted something, it was not intentional. It didn't really know it.
So it looks like we're missing the footprint and elevation. Right, so
With respect to elevations, if it's okay with planning and zoning, I would have no problem coming back and showing you the final plat with the plans and the deed restrictions.
And the variances.
So instead of going, so in addition to going to city staff, it would also come before you for.
that's correct.
And I just think that we need to make sure that what we're saying tonight is what we're going to hold any other developer to.
And let me add to the reason the elevations and stuff, while negotiating with builders, because they want to turn this to a builder to develop, to build out. They want to do the development, but let the builder build it out by certain criteria that is established here. The PDD will establish that part of it. So once we've got this established as what the requirements are, then they can hold that builder to it and get the final plat and bring the restrictions back based on what that builder is going to do. But when you're just talking about three different builders and they're saying, well, I can't tell you I can do that, if you haven't told me what the requirements are for the subdivision. That's where they're at in that process.
Well, is this the requirements?
Yes, if it's a part of the requirements, yes.
What do you mean it's part? Where's the rest
The
of it?
next part would be the restrictions that
That
they'll
would-
impose with the final plat.
Okay, I got a solution. Whatever we send forward, we say that the material we were provided was not complete. We would recommend that all these exhibits be included in the ordinance before it goes to city council.
In addition to
You know,
the footprint.
this other thing come back later, final plat and restrictions and whatever.
The final plat restrictions and elevation.
Okay.
But at least for the city council consideration, have everything in it that it says it has, including master plan, the town looks like a master plan, which is what that's referring to around this stuff.
And you may have done everything that you've been told to do so far. We're just saying that what we do tonight, we're going to be held at this same level going forward, just like you're trying to do, what was it, Los Colinas or Los Altos? So we want to be sure that what we do tonight, the next person that comes in or the next time you come before us, you'll know what we need. And we can look at it all and take it into consideration and have that up front so that we don't have to go through this again.
I completely understand.
Okay.
I have one last question. So we're okay with the variances as they stand? Because you said something about deleting by variance A.
A should be gone because.
Okay. Okay, so deleting
We're
it.
recommending A be gone. And 241, it says, so 15 church large should be 6,500.
Okay.
I want to propose that,
We're not through with him yet before you propose it.
no, we're doing the variance. This is
Okay,
part-
good. Okay.
I would propose that we change B, the minimum lot width, to 50. As a reasonable accommodation, going from 60 to 40 to 33% reduction. 60 to 50 is much more reasonable.
Now, which one is that? Okay.
That's in the list of variances, 2.3.2 is number B as in dad.
2.3.2.
Page 7.
Okay.
And minimum lot width, they're asking 60 to 40. I would like us to consider making that 60 to 50.
And I would only, I think that what you're saying is good, except for those three that I spoke to you about. Those three lots, 17, 18, and 22. Merely because it would hold, because if we start asking him to do anything in there, it's going to really mess up his plan.
Well, and the other thing is, I came before planning and zoning twice before. My lot width really hasn't changed from 60. You know, I did ask for 40 to give me a little leeway. We're working with a couple trees on a couple lots, but I've always kind of held to the 45.
Yes, it hasn't been less than 45. I agree. And that's what we told him the first time around.
So that shouldn't be 40.
That shouldn't be 40, it should be 45. Can you make it that?
I can look.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to start
And
writing.
that also comes with 242 where it says 40.
Yes, 45. That has to be. Okay, so
Now, as your current plan, you haven't installed a factor eyebrow. So does that need to be in there?
Probably not with the current plan. You're correct.
So no lot within project should be less than 45 feet wide, period.
yes, where is that?
242.
Yes, 45. 242 should be 45. 241 should be 6,500. And B was 45. We left the minimum front yard setback like he had it. And the D, I would like for you to reword that if you can. It says the minimum yard setback from 5 foot to 0.
Would it be okay if I added, with a minimum separation between the buildings?
That's much better. And then you're going to do the 2.4.7 to be at least 1 tree per lot.
That's correct.
Thank you. What about the, is everybody kind of going to agree with the streets? We're going to let that ride?
I'm against it.
What would you like for it to do?
I think that 22 foot wide, I think is too small. 50 foot wide, 20 foot wide. Right away,
Can we do parking along one side of the street?
not at 22 feet. 22 feet's enough for 2 traffic lanes. If they're typically 11. Countywide standards, they raised them, they were 24, but raised them to something.
They lowered.
Then it came back and lowered some, but they raised them the first time.
Well, as you can see by the design of the community, this is basically, these streets are kind of self-contained within the project itself. They're really not.
They're not
curved
perfect.
streets.
Yeah.
You're not gonna see a lot of people taking a shortcut getting from point A to point B.
We're just trying to- people trying to get out of their driveways.
If 2 cars can pass on that street without any trouble, my husband says, and if somebody wants to park on that street, we can't stop them from doing that.
We can ask them to have a deed restriction, no street parking.
We can ask them to have a deed restriction. Could you do that?
I'm okay with that, yes. And that's what that was down in the parking section.
Yeah, it said recommended or discouraged or something.
But we don't want recommended, we want,
If you're gonna have 22 feet, then there should be no street.
right.
And the police can enforce that, right?
That I don't know.
I thought.
If they had the deed restriction and they park and the police go back there. And the police are gonna want that money because that helps us.
Posted.
Yeah, it had to be posted by the sub.
Post it. And we did the deed restriction so that we make sure that there's a space for 2 cars in the driveway. Okay, now that's what I had on my list of things that you said that you.
2,500 wastewater, we have limited the last sentence about on-site sewage.
Yes, we eliminated that after in the event, all the way down to the end.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. I agree with the commentators, I think it's too dense, but it meets the requirements. Meets the units per acre, it meets the minimum square foot lot size.
And because of that, we have to, because of that, that it's in the UDC, and those are requirements that we can't, I don't think, override, because that's what it is.
In addition to the other things, they are still conveying us an easement to the elevator tower, so
Oh, good, good.
that's.
Yeah, with that
important.
easement, I
That's
forgot
important to
about that.
us.
I was gonna say, I forgot about that, but that's good. You did that.
It's important to mention that because there needs to be some quid pro quo here that's clear,
Right.
because we are giving some very.
It's a really big deal, it really is.
Now, have you eliminated 15th Street yet?
Not yet,
You're waiting on this to go through?
no, ma'am. Waiting for all the voting parties to sign the petition.
But that means that this would have to go through so that you have access there.
Not necessarily. I mean, they could convey it, but it's part of the overall plan is to have this go through so they can convey that and we have a paved access to the elevator top.
Otherwise, you would
It doesn't have anything really to do with the relinquishment of 15th Street. Relinquishment of 15th Street legally
signing of the petition of each abutting property owner. And I think, there's one.
There's one home, there's two, husband and wife that Lori gave spaces for them to sign, and I called them just a day or two ago and told them the council meetings next week, and I cannot figure out why they're not signing it.
That's the only holdup to it.
Okay, but he's giving you access. He's giving you access.
Yes,
All right, thank
and
you.
we'll have great paved access. It's even better.
That's wonderful.
Okay, so, okay, what was your, now we've gone through this and I've marked it and you've marked it. And so how are you going to phrase that? Does anyone else have any conversation, Mike? I'm not trying to leave you out. I can get pretty loud.
These, I mean, for me, these properties are too dense. They don't belong where they're going, where they're trying to put them. Either this one or the other one that we.
Well, the other one,
I do not-
we had to give them a lot of variances. But in this, their lot sizes are in line with what actually agreed to or are more than what's in the EDC.
They changed it to 6,500 or more on Los Altos.
They did get the 65, but there's 0 lot lines.
Yes.
But they have an HOA.
But to me, that doesn't matter because it's where it's located. It's located right next to a school. It's on 2 streets that are already pretty busy.
Los Altos?
13th Street and Mesquite Street. And now Green Lawn is going to be really busy. It has, I mean, I know we've discussed drainage, but to me, Garden Oaks is a lower area. That water is going to go there. It's going to go there.
It's gotta go through there somewhere.
It's got to go there somewhere. So I don't agree with these. I don't agree with these. So, yes, we know where I'm going to go.
And same month, but there's, if we give them the variances, then it's,
So what's our other option? Putting a moratorium on PDDs in that area until the drainage issue is.
Well, it's not that. It's not that. It's
Yeah.
the density.
Right,
It's the density. If you come in and build 15 houses, it would be totally different.
right, okay.
But he wants to build nearly twice.
and if we didn't allow the variance on lot width of made it 60 feet and didn't allow the variance on street width, then the density would go down significantly.
Yeah, but I mean, going forward,
And that would be what I would want to do.
yeah.
But I don't think there's any incentive for that, other than maybe mine. Yeah, I'd like to see this at 15, 20 numbers.
It's just the lot layout doesn't allow for all the requests. The property doesn't allow for all the requests to have 3 points of egress, keep as many trees as possible.
Yeah, that'd that conflicting.
So those are kind of the trade-offs to get back to kind of what the variances so that we can make it to that. And of course, the easement, conveying the easement to the city, that's one thing that changes. That's a street that has to be there. Whether we want it, whether they want it or not, it's something that has to be there, and that changes the ability to comply with the other requests. So it's kind of a trade-off of give and take. I think it's been fair on both sides, to be honest.
This reminds me of Trainer Street. And I don't know who was here when we did Trainer Street.
I don't remember that. I wasn't here.
It was 7 acres, I forget how many houses it's gonna be, 30 houses or something like that. And they met the technical requirements. They met the density, they met the lot size, but then it was a different lot size. It was like 5,500 or something before we raised that. And we had no technical grounds to deny it. But the uproar came from the citizens and the city council. And that's.
Oh,
we had no
I know where that
technical reason
was.
to do
That
this.
was over, yeah, I know where it was.
But if the public feels that strongly about it, city council can be persuaded. we've got no valid reason, if we accept those variances, not to accept this plan.
My concern is going forward. PDDs are supposed to be unique. That is one of their saving characteristics. But going forward, how many PDDs like this should we be looking at going forward? And I'm sure there are more in the make. I'm sure there are more in the tube. So how many more?
Well, I'm going to say to you, I would rather see 5 or 6 of these spread around town than what's going on
32.
at the Mud District.
How did that end up today?
Well, let's talk about that after. Let's talk about that after.
All right, well, I'm just thinking in terms of water buckets. Available water buckets.
I would rather, just the opposite of you. I would rather see what's going on there, as opposed to trying to do the same thing, which is this is just a mini version of the same thing here in the middle of town. And I really believe that Old Town Blanco should remain basically the way it is. And if you drive through Garden Oaks, you find, there may be 5 houses to a block. Usually it's 4. I think Loris Street is probably the one with most houses on it. The others are all basically spread out.
No, they're developing it. They're filling in. I mean, you'd be surprised how many houses have come into that area.
Well, on Lazy Creek especially. And see, there's another issue that I have, is they built them right down on the beginnings of Town Creek there. And I don't know, I know I bought a house over there in that area. It's not there's no floodplain when I went to get insurance. But I don't see how. I really don't see.
Well,
It's an R2 zone over there.
Yeah.
So that Mud District is going to be the same size as Blanco.
Yeah.
No.
And that's my
I'm
problem.
not in total agreement with.
And it has
My point is,
has all that
I see-
commercial
It's
business.
terrible, but on a larger scale.
Okay, so what are we going to do with this? Some commissioners, what are we going to do with this? You had a proposal that they were going to have to come back to us. So would you just state that clearly and we can,
Okay. That we forward this to city council with preliminary approval recommendation with conditions.
okay, I hope she's getting that. She's writing it down.
That those conditions are,
Slow.
okay, 1, that the ordinance be complete with all the things it says it's supposed to have in it, such as master plan. That we see it again in the final plat stage with the master plan and the elevations. Or that it comes to us again.
Let me clarify, you don't want to see the ordinance again, you want
No,
to,
no,
yeah,
the master plan,
You want to see the matches.
those things.
the final plat with the elevations and so on.
But that the ordinance is dependent on those things before it moves forward. And then the other conditions being the things we marked up in discussion, which were primarily 6,500 square feet, 45 lot width, 2-car garage, or 2-car spacing, no on-site septic.
Deed restriction
Deed restriction,
on
tree
the,
on every lot.
you have all that because we talked to you about that.
So that would be a proposal that we send in, and we kind of count that in. We're not giving it blanket approval. It has those conditions, and we want to see the final product.
Before it's approved.
Something to be
You second? Okay.
I think you covered it all.
I may not vote for it, but
Okay. So, so you have all that written down, right? You got it. That's the motion?
Rachel second.
Okay, so RK and Rachel.
Just want to clarify.
Certainly.
So I'll be coming back to the Planning and Zoning Commission with a final plat.
Yes.
plan Eliminations and deed restrictions
As we
for
discussed.
your approval.
Yes.
After staff review.
And for information, we'd like to see the master plan.
And let me just say, Mr. Sparrow, the visual so that we can see the layout of those homes on this plot,
Yes,
the elevation of what they're gonna look like.
so I'll include a revised master plan with the building,
Thank you,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah.
but those will also be provided to city council.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, commissioners, all in favor? Are you not gonna raise your hand? So 3, 4. 4? Okay, and so RK and Mike,
So, okay, opposed or abstained?
No,
he opposed.
He didn't answer just the raise my hand.
Do what?
He didn't ask us for all those.
Well, mine was very clear.
I'm sorry?
You didn't ask for all those.
You did.
I did.
I didn't. You just said Mike was opposed and I said.
I said, do you approve or?
No, I opposed.
That's what I thought. He opposes. Okay, so Mike and RK opposes, 4 approve, so it's passed to the council with restrictions and conditions.
Ms. Lumpy, if you would send me those notes in the morning, so I'll make sure we're all in, all 3 of us, we get all 3 on the same page, I think we'll get it right.
You're not gonna do the food stuff.
I don't think so, because she didn't show up,
She
right?
doesn't show up, we'll attack it next time.
Well, I'll give a point of information to you that her one-page letter is far from complete application. It does not have any requirements. So,
Is that from the time?
Oh,
The time frame?
yeah,
What?
yeah,
it didn't have a map, it didn't have signage, it didn't have parking, it didn't have any of that stuff.
I'm aware. I just said, oh, you that.
I mean, that's what they're.
Well,
Probably good.
so to give you the story on real quick, you can tell down the farm.
Yeah.
You go out and crawl in the field.
I wanted to call this.
I wanted to pick up some of your things, but one allowed me to come back.
Allow you to come back.
Before I tell you about that.
So that we're not going to have, hold on a minute, everybody. We're not going to have the,
No, so.
we're not gonna have the food truck. Are they going to come? Do I need to table it or we're just going to dismiss it? Okay. We'll table it. We'll table 1 and 2 on the old business, and we're not going to do any comprehensive master plan. I mean, any workshop on the map because Trey isn't here. So I move to adjourn the meeting at 9:25. You second it?